Hello, anybody who may or may not be in the stream. It's hard for me to know going through restream.io. It lags a little bit, so we're just going to give it a second. And if nobody joins, I will talk to myself. We got a couple of people in. What's going on, guys? I hope you're doing well today. So I wanted to do a stream, see how everybody was feeling. What's up, Deedro? How are you, Sir Cussis? I love it. I'm good. What's going on, Mr. Sweeney? First, as always. What's going on, guys? How's everybody feeling? Hi, Lisa. I hope everybody's doing okay, considering the day we've all had. How do you guys feel? You feel all right? Did the plan seem to totally collapse on you today, or were you pretty much onto it already? I'm gonna show you what I'm planning on talking about today. We're gonna go over some of the things that happened around the exit of Trump-Pence, but mostly just this headline right here because it annoyed me. We're also going to talk about Biden's pick for Assistant Health and Human Secretary, and we're going to talk about why that is a bad pick for that position. She should be disqualified for it. Then we're going to talk about some of the people who are still putting out the information that people were putting out in the weeks leading up to this, not proving out to be true, but they're still beating it into people, and we're going to talk about that, along with Sidney Powell withdrawing the Kraken lawsuit. And then I want to talk about a little bit about the future, and I've got the letter that Archbishop Vigano wrote to Trump, followed by a couple of YouTube videos that I want to follow up, and we're going to talk about Google a little bit, and a letter that Nancy Pelosi wrote to Acting Defense Secretary Miller. S. Allen, feeling exhausted, but a new resolve. Good. I'm glad that that's how you feel, because that's how we should feel. Things have changed, and some of us have saw it coming for a long time, that what was being put out in the alternative media wasn't necessarily matching up or whatever, and it kind of did a disservice, because instead of making plans on what do we do moving forward, we're kind of stuck on this idea that what's happening isn't really happening, and that's kind of counterproductive, I would say. If we had spent our time stepping back a little, securing a MAGA TV or a MAGA social media platform, some kind of freedom platform, if we'd spent our time preparing for who's going to run next in 2024, I think there could have, and what we're going to do to minimize what's going to happen in the next 4 years, I think that time would have been better served. But what's up, DT? Thanks for going live, Circuses. God is still in control. God bless you. Yes, God is in control. Am I laggy, Nick? It says I've got a good connection. We'll go with it until I hear some more people saying I'm lagged. It would not surprise me. Since my second live stream, my internet in my house has been jacked. I've had the Comcast guy come out here. He says there's nothing wrong that he can do. The only other option I have is to replace the modem. But I have a sneaky suspicion that that's not going to fix it either. So one of the things that really annoyed me today was this article about Pence being mocked for bragging that the U.S. did not enter a new war under Trump. And obviously, there's an obvious reason why that annoys me, because I hate when the truth is mocked, but I wanted you guys to see how this letter is written. Vice President Pence tried to sing the praises of Donald Trump on Sunday, boasting that the president was the first in decades to keep the U.S. from engaging in a war. I'm proud to report, with just a few days left in our administration is the first in decades that did not get America into a new war, Mr. Pence said during a speech at Fort Drum. That's peace through strength. Now, there are some arguments that could be made that they didn't start a new war, but they continued on this quasi-war system that we've had going on for decades and decades. But officially, they did not get us into a new war, which they had the opportunity with North Korea. They had the opportunity in Syria. I mean, Hillary Clinton was going to put a no-fly zone over Syria for Russia. That's war with Russia. He had the opportunity to get into a full-scale war with Iran, and he avoided that as well. So this is the one thing that Trump did that really is what I like and is what I will remember him for as far as positivity goes. But look at what this article does to Pence for saying this simple truth. Pence made the comment less than 2 weeks after Mr. Trump's supporters attacked the U.S. Capitol while calling for him to be hanged. Critics were quick to paint Mr. Pence's sentiment as hollow, pointing out to the massive death toll under Trump's leadership. Massive death toll to what? A war? No. Does someone else want to tell him, or should I? Author Rochelle Riley replied on Twitter, "We've been at war for 11 days and he and Donald Trump cannot leave soon enough." So we've been at war for 11 days since the Capitol Hill incident, guys. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Others pointed out that more Americans died under Mr. Trump's leadership than in almost any American war as a result of the CV. And because we all know the CV is his fault. We're not going to blame all the other leadership in the world for the CV, but we're going to blame Trump. Quote, "Instead, we killed nearly 400,000 Americans." Oh, my gosh. Okay, so there's that. You also have the fact that Trump got a lot done for peace in the Middle East. They're never going to talk about that either. So it's not only did he not engage in a new war, but he also made pretty good headways in the Middle East, more headway than any other president in my lifetime. So I find it strange that that's how they're going to attack Trump's never starting a war position. Lisa, you're exactly right. If it's not Biden, it'll be Kamala Harris. But within the next few days, one of the surf states that the intelligence agencies use to scare us, like North Korea or Iran, these vassal states that they use to threaten the American people so that they can put more money into the MIC, one of them is going to pop off. I have no doubt about it. If there's anything we know about the Poppy Bush cabal, which Biden is part of, it's that they are going to go back to war very soon. And there's literally no one in Congress that is going to stop them. Hey, Luna Tuna. Thank you. Next up. President-elect Joe Biden picks Pennsylvania Health Secretary Rachel Levine as Assistant Health Secretary. Dr. Rachel Levine will become the first openly transgender federal official to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. And that's the headline, okay? And we're going to have to get used to a lot of this in the future because that's going to be the headline in the future because that's what matters about this pick. Is that she's the first transgender pick. And I don't care if she's transgender. I don't care what she is. But that's not what the headline should be. The headline should be this. When the CV first started popping off, I made several videos about how the governors of several states, and you know the states, moved CV patients into nursing homes, causing an enormous amount of death. Responsible for, people put it in between 1/3 and 40% of all CV deaths were done by this action of these governors moving CV patients into nursing homes. Now, she did this, but that's not why I say she's disqualified. She took it a little bit further. I want you guys to listen to this. Pennsylvania Health Secretary moves mother to hotel. Okay, this is right as she's moving CV patients into nursing homes. And she does a lot of obfuscating here, and we're gonna break that apart. But first, I'm gonna let you guys listen to it all the way through, and then we'll go back through it.
So, thank you. We'll open up for Thank you, Director Padfield, and now we're available to take your questions.
Thank you, Secretary. Our first question is from ABC 27. Secretary, we're hearing that you moved your mother from a nursing home to a hotel. What message does that send to the thousands of Pennsylvanians whose parents are in nursing homes but may be unable to move them out when the person in charge is overseeing nursing homes and is in charge of the state's response to coronavirus moves out their own parent?
Well, thank you for that question. My mother actually is...
First of all, that's what we call a layup or a setup question. So ABC is working in concert with her to ask this specific question because it had come up in the alternative media, what she had done. So she gets this layup question that she's obviously reading her answer to, which means that she knew she was going to be asked the question. And let's go into it. I said I was going to let you guys listen to this first. Sorry.
Is a resident of a personal care home, not a nursing home, and...
We'll go through it again.
Coronavirus moves out their own parent.
Well, thank you for that question. My mother actually is a resident of a personal care home, not a nursing home, and that is regulated by the Department of Human Services, not the Department of Health. My mother requested, and my sister and I, as her children, complied to move her to another location during the COVID-19 outbreak. My mother is 95 years old. She is very intelligent and more than competent to make her own decisions. I remain committed to protecting residents in Pennsylvania, wherever they live and wherever they go. Whether it is in a facility that I regulate, whether it is in their homes and their communities, and whether or not they agree with our strategy.
Secretary, from WKOK, with 70% of the state's COVID-19 deaths coming from nursing homes and long-term care facilities, where is our greatest need for improvement in these facilities? Do we need better?
So that's a lot of percentage coming from the nursing home facilities. We can see why she moved her out, right? But I want to break down a couple of things that she says because she's slick.
Thank you, Director Padfield, and now we're available to take your questions.
Thank you, Secretary. Our first question is from ABC 27. Secretary, we're hearing that you moved your mother from a nursing home to a hotel. What message does that send to the thousands of Pennsylvanians whose parents are in nursing homes but may be unable to move them out when the person in charge is overseeing nursing homes and is in charge of the state's response to coronavirus moves out their own parent?
Well, thank you for that question. My mother actually is a resident of a personal care home, not a nursing home, and
so there's your first problem, because all of the treatment centers that were geared up. Hold on, let me find it. They included all nursing homes, all personal care homes, and all out. I forget the other name of it, and you guys got to be kidding me. I've lost that. I lost that point. But the nursing care, whether you're in a nursing home or a personal care home, it doesn't matter. They're both the same thing underneath the Pennsylvania laws at this time.
That is regulated by the Department of Human Services, not the Department of Health.
Then she makes a distinction that there's some kind of separation between the Department of Health and Human Services. This is Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, one of the largest counties in Pennsylvania. As you can see right here on its webpage, it refers to home, departments, and the Department of Health and Human Services. Over here, this is the compass. This is where people come to apply if they need medical or financial help. And also here, it refers to general information on health and human services. So because at this time, she's the Secretary of Health, she wants to draw a distinction that it's a different situation.
Good afternoon. That I would like to address.
Oh, sorry, wrong thing.
Requested, and my sister and I, as her children, complied to move her to another location during the COVID-19 outbreak. My mother is 95 years old. She is very intelligent and...
She is very intelligent. And this just, I don't think that they even know how elitist they sound. But here she's trying to make some kind of distinction between her mother and my grandmother's. My grandmother, not very smart. She can't choose to move in or out of these nursing homes. No, her mother is very intelligent. And this is the kind of excuse that we're going to get as they continue to do this hypocritical stuff where they don't follow the same rules that they've put down for us. And I don't have to go through all the list of all the different ways that they've done it. And for people who are saying that her LGBTQ designator isn't going to come up, isn't going to be a problem, this is something that she felt the need to take the time out to talk about right in the middle of the CV crisis.
For the latest update on COVID-19 in Pennsylvania. Before I begin, however, with the daily updates, there is an important issue that I would like to address. I feel that I must personally respond to the multiple incidents of LGBTQ harassment and specifically transphobia directed at me that have been reported in the press. I would first like to sincerely thank Governor Wolf for his continued support and for his comments last week. The LGBTQ community has made so much progress under Governor Wolf and his leadership during his time in office. But I want to emphasize that while these individuals may think that they are only expressing their displeasure with me, they are, in fact, hurting the thousands of LGBTQ Pennsylvanians who suffer directly from these current demonstrations of harassment.
So when you're going to the Pennsylvania Public Access Channel to find out what the heck is going on with this virus that they're terrifying everyone with, what do you get? You get a shovel full of you are doing this wrong, you are doing that wrong, and we're talking about something that is completely unrelated. This is your new Health and Human Services Assistant Secretary, guys. And this is just the first nomination that I looked at because she happens to be from the state where I reside. We're going to go through a lot of his picks because they're actually, I don't know how to say it, pretty terrifying. It's so hard because you hear people, of course I talk about this all the time about the two wings of the same bird. And it's going to be really hard over these next couple of weeks to see how there's supposedly no difference between a Trump administration and a Biden administration. The first thing I know is he's back in the climate accord already. So, well, we can all start looking forward to $5 a gallon gas, and that's like a pet peeve of mine, so that's just like a personal thing that I hate. But there's going to be a lot of quick changes that are going to put things back the way they were. Back the way they were. Next up. You would think that it would be impossible that there would be people still talking about this, the possibility of this happening, but it's not. And I just want you guys to just listen to Lynn Wood here, and I want to know what you guys think about it.
God is going to save
S. Allen, yes, she's a man.
This country. He's not done with us yet. He's going to be the perfect father to deliver some perfect discipline, but God is in control, and God always acts for good. So pray. Ask God to protect and save the country. Ask him to give President Trump the guidance he needs and the courage he needs, and pray for our military. So prayer is the first and most important option. Exercise it. The second one you said was hope. Please have hope. Never lose hope, because God is in control and you don't give up on God. The third thing you mentioned, Stu, was action. I would say inaction is the key phrase. Whatever happens over the next several days, stay in your house. Let the military and the authorities deal with it. If you have some of these Source, Antifa, BLM people creating problems, trying to blame.
Now, I'm assuming they're telling all these patriots to stay at home and not do anything because they don't want them to get caught up in an FF or something like that to that effect. But I find it very interesting that trust the plan lines up very well with stay in your home in a time where we're possibly you have half of the voting bloc in this country feels as though there was something wrong with the election, and you have the left telling you to just shut up and move on, and you have the right telling you to just stay at home and trust the plan. And in the meantime, there's 40,000 troops in D.C. We basically just saw a man get inaugurated for president in a way that every despot in the history of despots has come to power.
Donald Trump overthrowing the government. That's not happening. He's trying to save our republic. He will. So stay inside and make sure you ready to hunker down maybe for 10 or 14 days. Get food, water, flashlight, batteries, radio. I don't know exactly what will happen, but it's better to be prepared than not be prepared. So the last thing I would say, and this is off task or subject a little bit, don't fall for this vaccine stuff. This Pfizer vaccine has created a lot.
Oh, heck, I got to stop that before I get jacked on this channel.
Weapon. It was an attack on America. It is now confirmed without any doubt from John Radcliffe, the director of the Office of National Intelligence, that China was behind the interference and the effort to overthrow our government in the election.
So what do you guys think that means? What do you think Lynn Wood is talking about moving forward? I still have people who are telling me that all the way into February it could be possible that Trump would be president again, and I'm just confused. I'm trying to understand where all this is coming from. I know that it comes from a circle of people who all communicate together, or for the most part they do, but I want to know where their information's coming from, because it's gotten kind of frustrating for me personally. You talk about the Anon, right? And nowadays, most people who talk about the Anon have never even been to a messaging board. More or less read an Anon post, okay? And so really what you have is a bunch of people walking around talking about what people told them about that Anon, which is even worse than the original thing being a psyop to begin with, because now it's just destroyed. But so the current Anon movement is very, very strange and bizarre, and I felt it happening when the Lynn Woods and all of those people started, Patrick Byrne, all of them started getting involved. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't smell right to me, and thought I would share that with you guys. Lynn Wood still saying Trump's going to be president. In the meantime, Sidney Powell has had to withdraw her Kraken lawsuit in Georgia. Now, she says she did it because they no longer have standing because the election is over. So she says she's still going to keep fighting. But I'm just, at this point, my question is what are you fighting? What's the plan? Because, excuse me, if there is a plan, it would be, beneficial to share it with other truthers so that we would know what direction they're planning on going. But unfortunately, it's just starting to feel to me like, it's just perception management, right? We call everything perception management. We're always talking about perception management and about how if you can control what people are ingesting as data, you can control how they react to it. So you control behavior by managing perception, and that's what's happening. And I guess what people have to come to terms with is that it's happening on both sides. It's not just the mainstream media that is doing perception management. It's also now the alternative media that's doing it. And the thing that's really hard about the whole Anon Anon movement was that a lot of it is true, right? The worst psychological operations, the most insidious ones, they're like 80% true and 20% false, right? But the problem is that 20%, it's specifically there to lead you in a different direction. We've talked about honeypots or a honey trap operation. I don't know if it was always that, but as I go looking into it further and further, there's no doubt in my mind that it was an operation. And it seems by the information that they let out, it was a pro-Trump operation. I don't know. And I guess that means that it was biased in that direction. But Yeah, I always found it funny that Alex Jones had a problem with him immediately, because to me, before the Anon came along, AJ was the original gatekeeper guy, somebody who will bring you into the world but then get you completely lost once you're into it, you know. And a lot of things that AJ said came true, and a lot of things that AJ will say in the future will also come true. But I find it very interesting that him and the Anon immediately had problems with each other back when that happened. There's something to that. There really is. So the question is, though, well, where is it really going from here? If we're looking at a Biden presidency, which I didn't want to just come out and say it for weeks and weeks, but it's, in my opinion, that's what we're looking at, then I feel like it serves us better to look at what can we do to mitigate the changes that he's going to make to the country, and what is the plan from them moving forward, because what we've seen so far around the election is nothing but the tip report. And we went over the Transition Integrity Project, and it followed that out to the point. So they have no problem broadcasting what the plan is. It's just a matter of looking at it instead of listening to people talk about things that are very unlikely to happen. When I wanted to know what was the plan moving forward, the first thing that came to my mind was going back to the Archbishop Vigano's letter to Trump, not the first one, the second one. And I highlighted this paragraph because this is what's about to happen. The purpose of the Great Reset is the imposition of a health dictatorship aiming at the imposition of liberticidal measures hidden behind tempting promises of ensuring a universal income and canceling individual debt. The price of these concessions from the International Monetary Fund will be the renunciation of private property and the adherence to a program of jabbing against the CV-19 and the CV-21, which has not come out yet, but Archbishop Vigano is pretty sure it's coming, promoted by Bill Gates with the collaboration of the main pharmaceutical groups. Beyond the enormous economic interests that motivate the promoters of the Great Reset, the imposition of the jab will be accompanied by the requirement of a health passport and a digital ID, with the consequent contact tracing of the population of the entire world. Those who do not accept these measures will be confined in detention camps or placed under house arrest, and all their assets will be confiscated. So this, to me, you guys, is where we're heading. And I feel like instead of looking at fanciful possible futures, it's more important to look at what's really going to happen, and so that we can prepare for it. Am I right? I don't know. Maybe. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this right. There we go. I'm going to play for you guys one of my old YouTube videos. This is a video I made on April 3rd of 2020, and I'm only going to play the first few minutes of it because I also think this is where we're heading.
What about the new surveillance techniques introduced to curb the spread?
In Hangzhou, to go out of the community or to public activities, you need to have a green code. This green, yellow, or red code is automatically decided through the system. It uses big data to decide whether you've been to affected districts or come into contact with those people.
I think that although it's not really reasonable, it is still a preventative measure.
We actually looked at the back-end code that the app was running, and what you could see is the moment that a user gives it permission to access data, it immediately sends a function that says report info and location to police. And then we looked into it, and the police were a key developer of the product as well. And so from that, you can tell that the data is basically being sent back to the police the moment somebody actually uses the app.
In some 200 Chinese cities, you now need a green code to get on public transport. Without it, you can do almost nothing.
I'm not an expert, but if the government says this is useful, I believe them.
Now, when I heard this, and I put this in my video originally, I thought these people sounded insane. But after a couple of months, they sound like my neighbors.
I'm not an expert, but if the government says this is useful, I believe them.
A Chinese company has now developed facial recognition technology that works even if you're wearing a mask.
Yay!
The epidemic has enabled the Chinese authorities to normalize digital social control, something they're unlikely to relinquish.
So, in my mind, that's where we're heading. That's the future. And it's the China model. And we all know that the China model was something that as soon as the CV hit and we were seeing all those remember all those crazy videos of people dropping dead in China, and all they had backhoes that were just digging giant holes in the road so nobody could get in and out of towns, and they were barring people's houses shut. I mean, now they're having raves and everything, but back then we were seeing all this start hitting the internet, and it was being pushed our way. And it was starting to scare people. And the main thing for me to focus on there was that the WHO, the WHO, was right behind them and saying, this is how it has to be handled, right? They said the China model, this is how it has to be done. So the WHO says that, and that's Gates, and Fauci jumps right on board. And the next thing you know, all these giant lockdowns are happening as the CV first moved to the Jade Princess and to Italy. So it's the China model. That's what's coming to the United States. And if you look at all the information I've done about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and the laptops, and we know, okay, whether or not the mainstream media wants to acknowledge it, we know he's in their pocket, along with what I would say probably is another 85% of all politicians are some way, shape, or form blackmailed or withholden to outside interests, and I think much of it has to do with China. And we'll get into that later too. And the next thing I wanted to talk about just briefly is I'm really disappointed in Trump for not pardoning Julian Assange. Really disappointed in Trump not pardoning Julian Assange. I saw it coming. I didn't think it was going to happen. But, you know, along with all these other things that we've been talking about tonight, you just kind of have this hope that, you know, it'll happen. It'll be a last minute thing. And it didn't. But this article written by Julian Assange, which I may be able to do, I'm going to do a video on it completely separate because I don't want to read through it right now. It's many, many pages. But in this article, Julian Assange details how Eric Schmidt was running around the world conducting business, government business, while still doing it under the name of Google. And Google went to North Korea and China. They went everywhere pushing this social credit system that they had built in China. And the reason why I bring this up now is because it's key to remember that when we say the Chinese system of social credit scores is heading this way, it's important to understand that it might be heading this way, but it's heading back over here. It was created here by Google, and it was implemented in China first as a dry run. And I'm not the only truther who's feeling this either. I want to show you guys. Do you guys watch Dr. Vernon Coleman? I had said many times in my streams, I'm not much for just listening to people talk and not citing sources or not having anything to back it. This is the exception to the rule. This is one of the wisest men on YouTube. And right around the time I was having this sinking feeling about the inauguration and China and our future and, you know, mandatory masks and mandatory jabs and lockdowns and a dark winter, I guess that's what I'll say. Because it really looks like we're coming into a dark winter now, just like he predicted. It was either going to be a great awakening or a dark winter, and here we are. But This is the YouTube release that he did on the 16th of January, right as I was having these same thoughts. I swear sometimes we all get the same download when we're connected in.
So, what's going to happen next? I can tell you that. A few years ago, in a book called The Games Afoot, I wrote that the Chinese government giving people marks according to their behavior. The social engineering, citizens being ranked and rated according to their behavior, began just over a decade ago. The government, I wrote, will measure people's behavior in order to decide what services they're entitled to. Anyone who incurs black marks for traffic offences, fare dodging or jaywalking will find that they're no longer entitled to the full range of public services and rights. Moreover, internet activity will also be used to assess behavior. Individuals who do bad things on the internet or whose searches are considered questionable will find themselves black marked.
And this runs in line with all the calls that you're hearing for them to start tracking and finding out who these MAGA people are and put them on a list and maybe re-education camps. Huh?
Individuals who have responsible jobs will be subjected to enhanced scrutiny, close quotes. It was called having a social credit score, and I wrote then that it was likely that Western governments would soon follow suit, and they're now doing so with great enthusiasm. It might not have obviously reached your town just yet, but it will. Oh, it will. China has led the way because the Chinese system is more efficient than anything the West can offer. The Chinese government has more control over everything, and the people don't have much control over it.
Yeah, well, fucking la-ti-da. I love your comment. You're exactly right.
It works very easily. Everyone starts off with so many points, and a smart app on every phone measures behavior and helps the authorities decide whether or not you're a good citizen. There are, of course, video cameras absolutely everywhere, watching to see whether you cross the road at the right time, smoke in public, throw down litter, or do anything considered antisocial or inappropriate. If you talk to the wrong sort of people, you'll find your rating goes down. Stand and talk to me, for example, then you'll be sure to get black marks.
Or any other conservative patriot, MAGA people, certainly myself as well, on YouTube saying conservative things. If you are hanging out with me, this is going to be a bad thing in the future.
China has one camera for every 2 people now, and they're equipped with facial recognition technology that can pick an individual out of a football crowd in less time than it takes to say, surely they can't do that. Supermarket computers watch to see how much you spend on alcohol, cigarettes, sweets and fatty foods. You'll lose points if you spend too much on the wrong sort of food. Local authorities measure how much recycling you've put out, and cameras in the bins will tell computers how much food you've thrown away and how much excess packaging you've had to discard. Of course, social credit scores are already here.
You're exactly right. The Dro, that's exactly right. They're going to dock your universal basic income. And one of the main things that they're going to dock your universal basic income for is saving. That's the crazy thing, is that if you don't spend your money, that will actually get you marks more than anything else. And it's a very bizarre system. I don't know if you guys have ever checked out something called TAAS, TAAS, Transportation as a Service. It fits into this. It's like they don't want anyone to own private property in the future. They want us all to just share it communally, and transportation is how they're going to start doing that first. And they're doing it with a process called Transportation as a Service.
The West, and they've been introduced slowly. In the UK, for example, drivers of more expensive motor cars have to pay a special, massively increased tax to use a motor car on the roads. That's just a blatant punishment for spending a lot on a car. On the other hand, citizens who drive electric cars don't have to pay anything towards the building, maintenance and repair of roads. They're exempt from the tax because they are considered good citizens.
And that's happening here in the US if you drive a Tesla.
Their cars use the roads just as much as cars which are powered with petrol or diesel, but they are exempt. Drivers of petrol or diesel-powered cars are punished for being bad citizens, and they too must pay ever-rising annual taxes for the roads. The system ignores the fact that electric cars have been proven to be no better for the environment than petrol or diesel-powered cars. And drive your car into a city and you'll have to pay a special penalty. If you live in a house that's bigger than you need, you'll be marked down and your taxes will rise. If you have spare rooms, you'll be punished. If you do a useful job and give money to charity, you'll get extra points. If you criticize the government, then you'll lose points. When you're away from home, the authorities will, of course, know where you are all the time.
And they've already started that in the U.S. with Real ID. Now, the Real ID rollout was pushed back because of the CV, but trust and believe it'll come back. And heck, they might even put your jab passport on your Real ID, which will be required to fly from state to state inside the country. All right? You have to have a Real ID to get on a plane in Pennsylvania and fly to Georgia. Already. This is stuff, it's already here.
If you behave badly, you won't be allowed to go far from home. If you haven't obeyed all the health regulations, you won't be allowed to travel on public transport, fly anywhere or go abroad. If your social credit rating goes down, you won't be able to borrow money, buy a house, or book a decent room in a hotel. If your
sounds like an awful lot already like a regular credit score, right?
rating goes down too far, you won't be allowed to go into hospital. And if you get in by accident, they'll slam a do not resuscitate notice around your neck before you can say, what's that for? You'll receive bonus points if you live in a tiny, modern, poorly built flat with thin walls and absolutely no privacy, but you'll lose those points if you keep a pet or complain about absolutely anything. If you spend too much on clothes or shoes, your rating will go down, and saving money will mark you out as guilty of something or other, and you won't be able to hire a car, get a promotion at work, use a gym, or get your children into a school with textbooks. If you're a lot of trouble, you'll find that your internet speeds will slow to a crawl, and if you have your own business but talk back to council officials, you won't get any help with planning problems or be able to obtain any official government contracts.
Now, he goes on for 16 minutes about this, and I'm not going to keep going. If you guys want, you can look up his channel and watch the video. For me personally, it's a really depressing 16 minutes. It's kind of hard to get through. But the whole point of this, what I'm saying is that these are the things that we need to be preparing for, and we need to be planning for. And the truther community is such a vibrant and strong community, and it's the only place left where diversity of thought is still flourishing. And because of that, it's a wash basin of ideas that's where the great ideas of this world are going to come from. And if the truther community has been misled into, instead of planning for the future or 5D chess, they are waiting back, not doing anything. We're going to trust the plan. It's a problem. That's a problem. And what's happened is that it's like this. Like back in the day before the internet and the phones, right? Reality was like a bunch of each person walking along. He had a bubble of reality, and that's what he knew as reality. And it was slightly different than all the other people around them. But then when bunches of groups of people got together, all those bubbles of reality kind of got together, and they formed what was a consensus reality, right? Now, because of social media, they have been able to basically put it into just two spots, just two. And when you've created this false reality through social media manipulation, through cable media, through subversion in the colleges, etc., and you are able to get a bunch of humans in sync with that same reality, it doesn't matter if it's a false reality or a real reality at that point. It is a real reality because so many people are believing the same thing. It makes it a very strong force in the world. And that's really the danger that I'm seeing here, is that the perception management that's been going on since as far back as I can remember on the television and the regular media, blah, 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 is something I'm used to. But I'm not used to seeing such severe perception management going on in the truther community, where there are several beliefs, and I'm not going to go through them, where if you have them, you can be shunned by the truther community, just canceled, basically, right? We don't do that, but that's what happens. And I feel like we've got to take a step back and start reevaluating. What are we going to do in the future? What are the plans to make in the future? And we have to stop waiting on people to do it for us. Whether it's an Anon or a YouTuber or Trump himself, it's time for us to start making plans on what we can do to make sure that the next 4 years isn't absolutely devastating, and to make sure that there is still a remnants of the republic when it's over. Because I'm going to tell you guys, when they won the majority in Virginia, Governor Northam, and got caught in blackface, but that's all right because he's a Democrat, they got the House, the Senate, and the governor's office in Virginia. And what happened? Within a month, they had all these laws of violation of the Second Amendment. They had legalized abortion all the way up until birth. They had done and they pushed all these bills through very quickly. That is about to happen again. And their goal is to remake America, right? So they always gave Trump's crap for saying to make America great again, right? Because they're like, it was never great. Okay. But their anthem is, we're going to remake America. So this is where people have to start putting their thoughts in. Like, do we want an entirely new America? And if we do, because we might, then who are our enemies and who are our allies? Because this is going to be hard for a lot of people to hear, but the people on the far left, at their core, they recognize something that we recognize, that this system isn't working. Now, they are envisioning a different system that we don't want, and of course no, but they do recognize that the system isn't working as it is. Now you have 78 million people who just got done voting for Trump, and now they're trying to completely decimate the MAGA movement. Why? Because in the tip report they said they're terrified of a Trump social media, of a Trump television channel, and they're terrified of Trumpian, what they called Trumpian politics surviving Trump's presidency. And the people on the right, the rhinos, they're the ones that are going to be solidly committed to destroying that connection. And I was listening to Jimmy Dore the other day, and he was talking about how we needed new parties. And I commented under his video, I said, you had one, but it was MAGA, and you didn't want it to be MAGA, and so you lost it. And so now we're back at one party. And that was a really sad thing for me, because here I am realizing that these people all the way on this side and these people all the way on this side both recognize there's a problem, but we're so put against each other, right? We're so played against each other, the far left and the far right. We're so played against each other that we still can't get together and realize we're the only ones who recognize this system isn't working. We can argue about what we do with the future of the system later, but let's all agree that this is not working. Joe Biden isn't working. Like, Trump did his best, but Trump didn't work, right? If Trump was not enough, if he was not a big enough bull in the china shop to just bring it all down and get people to wake up and realize that we need to do something different, then nothing is, no one is. It's going to have to be the people. We're going to have to do that. Well, have they divided us once and for all? I refuse to believe that. I will never believe that. And as long as I'm alive, I'm not going to believe that, because what I do is I do reality checks, and I go outside and I walk around, or I go somewhere and I talk to people and I have interactions with people outside of the digital realm, and we're not as separated as they would like us to think we are. We're really not. They highlight these extremists on both ends, and it's a very small percentage of people, and they make it play out like that's who everybody is in that political ideology. And if you're a MAGA person or somebody on the right, you should at least be able to empathize with being misrepresented in the media. Just a thought. So I'm going to do a whole episode about this Google paper that Julian Assange, who absolutely should have been pardoned, wrote, and because it is truly eye-opening to see what these guys have been doing and for how long they've done it. We all got played. Time for healing. Yeah. It's just a matter of, when you put so much ego behind something and you really, you put all of yourself into it, then when it doesn't happen, you take it as a personal shot to your ego. And that's, I always tell people, try not to get your ego involved in politics, because if you put your sense of self behind a political ideology, then when somebody tries to talk to you about politics, you're going to take everything that they say as an attack on self. And it's also just really shitty to identify by your political party. Minimize. I'm getting this worked out, guys. Last thing I wanted to talk about, because this is strange, and my channel's always this, and it'll always be covering strange oddities. And this one tends to line up with Lynn Wood's theory on things more than anything. And I don't think that that's the situation, but there's just a lot moving under the carpet that we don't understand. But this letter that Nancy Pelosi wrote to Acting Defense Secretary Miller is quite interesting, especially when you consider that I made an episode... it was a couple of weeks ago where I was pointing out that Ezra Cohen Watnick was the undersecretary for the Special Forces now, and that Chris Miller had changed the chain of command for Special Forces Command and given them the same ability to directly report to the Secretary of Defense that all the other branches had. That was a huge thing that they did there, and it gave control. It wrestled control from the bureaucracy more towards it going directly to the Secretary of Defense when it came to SF operations. Now, we all know that, who was the general from the NSA? Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers was the one that blew the whistle on the entire unmasking, 702 about queries, the whole thing. And again, here we are talking about the NSA, which people generally talk about the NSA as the outlier. Like when all of the intelligence agencies all got together and they had 100% certainty that Trump was working with Russia, it was the NSA who said that, parted from all the other intelligence agencies, and said that they didn't have that level of assuredness. And it was because Mike Rogers had seen what was going down with all these illegal unmaskings. So Nancy Speaker Pelosi sent a letter late yesterday to Acting Department of Defense Secretary Christopher C. Miller demanding an immediate halt to the improper process of installing unqualified Trump loyalist Michael Ellis as the new National Security Agency General Counsel 72 hours prior to the beginning of the new administration. Now, why if Biden gets sworn in on the 20th like he did today, tomorrow he can fire all these guys. So why is she tripping about this on January 18th? In the letter, the speaker wrote, "Public reporting indicates that Mr. Ellis, a relatively recent law school graduate with limited resume, was selected due to interference by the White House and was chosen over much more qualified candidates. Moreover, Mr. Ellis has been reportedly involved in highly questionable activities that are disqualifying. including the infamous 2017 midnight run to launder intelligence information through Representative Devin Nunes, and with efforts to shield information about President Trump's July 2019 call with the president of Ukraine. So, what did he do that was so awful? He told the truth. Oh, man. He told the truth. The NSA General Counsel, which involves supervising many intelligence community attorneys and interacting with intelligence agencies, is a highly sensitive career position for which candidates are selected based on merit and free from political influence. If Mr. Ellis did not go through the traditional civil service hiring process, I request a detailed account of that process to understand how someone with his credentials was chosen over qualified candidates. I mean, first of all, people are picked for reasons other than qualifications all the time. Just look at every ambassador to every country ever. It's very interesting to me that she is this worried about more moves that Defense Secretary Chris Miller is making. And as an acting Defense Secretary, he has a lot of leeway where he can do a lot of things that a Senate-confirmed Defense Secretary wouldn't be able to do. I find it weird that she... Can we talk about the Black Hawk Downs by the CCP? Sure, I don't know anything about it. What about it? I can't find it. I don't see it. I don't want to do a lot of research just looking for something like that. What can you tell me about it? In Rochester, New York? All right, I'll take a look at it. I'll definitely look into it. But yeah, it's definitely time for healing, guys. And we're not divided once and for all. And it's really not as bad as it feels right now. I know it feels bad. Like, Quantum of Conscience, Matt from Quantum of Conscience was talking about how he watched the New Year's celebration on TV, and he watched the inauguration, and how they had similar energies. And I think he's right. There was something strange about how the New Year's Day thing felt on TV. It was just kind of like this energy. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but it was just like this kind of dark energy over it. And then J-Lo opened in all white like she did for the New Year's thing. She opened during the inauguration for Biden, and it just had the same feel, just very bizarre feel. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone right now, and I feel like that's where a lot of truthers are right now. And that's why I wanted to make the video, just to say, like, it's okay that we feel like this. We're going to work through it. We're critical thinkers. We're going to be able to reposition. I mean, call it a tactical withdrawal. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But we're always just going, because it's not a withdrawal. We're just going to be moving forward with the truth and moving forward in the truth. Doing the best we can. We won't always be right. And a lot of people have been wrong. But I was watching a Vice video about the Anon, so you can imagine it's filled with BS. But in the Vice article, they said that the information that was put on the boards was essentially 80% true and 20% false. And the thought that I had in my mind was, well, that's got to be better than the mainstream media, right? So I mean, even if you've been misled by that guy, the Anon, then you don't beat yourself up, because there's hundreds of millions of people who are utterly and destroyed with their perception. They're watching CNN, and so I think I want to say to the people who followed the Anon that just like Alex Jones, right? When we all saw him in the bushes filming Bohemian Grove, it was like, yo, Alex Jones. But at a certain point, after researching the things that he puts you into, you realize that you have to grow past him, and you start to see him for who he is. And I think it's just as important with the Anon situation. It's great that he was able to bring a lot of things into the public sphere that a lot of people didn't know about. But if you don't know by now that it's time to start growing past that, then it's time to start growing past that. Right? Right. So I wish you guys the best. I love you all. Thanks for coming and keeping the 22 people in my chat that you guys did. You guys are the reason why I do this. Laramie, I'm going to look into this Blackhawk that was downed by the CCP, and I'll go through your guys' comments and see if there's anything else in there that I need to bring up in a later live stream. But I'll probably be live streaming again in another couple of days, and I plan to continue to keep putting out regular videos. It's a lot, but I think it's important, especially right now. So I'm not going anywhere, guys. If they take my YouTube channel away, then you can find me on DLive, and you can find me on BitChute. I love you guys. Dungeon Master Blaster, what's up? You caught me live, but we're at the end. Hi, Erica. Hi, Kathleen. I didn't say hi to you. You guys are awesome. Every time I do this, I have to go back through and read the comments, and I learn from it. I learn as much from the comments as I put out, usually. But thanks, guys, for all your support. Love y'all. It's all good. Thanks for showing up. I'm glad you're here. And I haven't gotten a regular schedule to my live streaming, so I need to do that. That way people know when to come and when to see me. But I haven't quite figured out when the best time to do that is yet, so I'm still kind of in the middle of figuring all that out. But yes, I don't watch much TV anymore unless I have to, Kathleen. Cool, I'm glad you caught most of it. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you again soon. It was a pleasure. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.